my health. It seems it doesn't really matter if your superpower's fire to the melt.
So, yeah, John, explain, like, because I've been following it too, and it seems, isn't that DC fandom thing, like, was it this weekend or it's coming up, right?
It's in a couple weeks. I mean, like, you guys are, like, kind of, like, more on the ball of, like, that DC fan thing than I am. But, yeah, I think it's on the 22nd. Like, some of the big news we have heard is, like, Rocksteady is finally going to announce their long
Suicide Squad game.
I guess.
I'm
I remember,
excited
like, I just remember, like, years ago when it was rumored to be, like, a Superman game.
And now it's both.
And then a Denny O'Neil, like, Batman-style game. And then it was supposed to be a Justice League game. And now and then it was rumored to be a Suicide Squad game. So,
well, that's because there's that whole post-credit scene in Arkham Origins.
Well, also, when did Arkham Origins come? Or not Arkham Origins, Arkham Knight come out? Like, that game has been
5 years ago. No, more than that.
It's
got to be like 7 years ago, right?
It's almost 10 years old at this point.
I don't think it's that old, but it's old enough to where most studios would have probably released a new game at this point. So, like, I think the rumors of, like, the Superman, the Batman, the Justice League game have all been, like, reworked titles at certain points, and then they just kind of nailed down the Suicide Squad game. Like, because, I mean, like, this day and age, unless you're Rocksteady, you don't take that long to make a game.
Yeah, it came out June 2015. I feel like it was older than that.
That's still fairly old enough to where, like, I feel like you just would have put out a new game. But I mean, that was, like, not even this console generation. Like, Arkham Knight wasn't even a PlayStation 4, Xbox One game, right?
Yes, it was.
It was.
Okay, so it must have been, like, super early then. Yeah,
they came out with a PS4 Arkham Knight system.
I had that system. It was pretty.
But so it's supposed to be like this big DC thing where, like, yeah, like they're going to announce these games. There's rumors of Injustice 3 is going to be announced also with Watchmen characters. Like, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how happy most people are going to be about that, but whatever. There's probably going to be like a lot of gaming news or movie news, but the big kind of thing that's happening as of today is. There's a giant HBO, like, Warner Brothers restructuring that's been going on.
Which also coincides with them talking about selling Warner Brothers games and then pulling back on that in the last 2 days.
Yeah, man, who kind of, like, knows at this moment? Because, like, yeah, basically, there's massive layoffs at Warner Media right now. This is supposed to be, like, I guess, a way to, like, streamline HBO, like, their subsidiaries, and, you know, kind of just trim the fat in, like, in a coronavirus world, which totally sucks, but, you know, corporations only care about money, I guess, you know. But so because of it, some news has been coming out today of basically, like, a quote unquote
bloodbath.
Like, that's like the war that's being used at DC right now. The early rumors are that right now that executive editor of Black Label Mark Doyle is gone. DC editor Andy Kahori, who was an editor on a bunch of really cool books.
Yeah, and Black Label's been, like, doing very well for them too.
Yeah, and Mark Doyle's like if you look at all the stuff that Mark Doyle's, like, worked on, it's all, like, just really rad stuff. And it's like, if you know, it's like, if I was, like, running a company and trying to trim, like, fat, like, I don't know if I would trim Mark Doyle. Bob Harris is out as editor-in-chief of DC, which is, he's been at editor-in-chief of DC for, I want to say, like, a pretty long time. I think this is probably, like, a move that's probably good, because, like, he's, like, the kind of guy that kept, you know, a guy like Eddie Brazenga in his position for longer than he probably needed to be. Same with Scott Lobdell.
Yeah, and what do you call it? Dio too, right?
Oh, well, Dan DiDio is long gone at this point.
Yes, but, like, he only went up at this point, but that was only, like,
about a
7
year ago.
months. Yeah, about a year ago. But he was in charge, and it took, like, seems like pressure from like Snyder and some of the other big writers to push him out.
Yeah, like July felt like 2 days went by. Like 2020, time has no meaning.
Yes.
So the rumor is also that Jim Lee will be transitioning out of his role as COO and publisher, and that Michael Wells, who's currently the executive editor of DC's Children Young Adult line, and Mary Javins will be kind of promoted into his role. But then there's also just like a lot of slight restructuring. But
this is Lee's second demotion in like a year or two.
I mean, like, here's the thing, like, there are like things that are happening behind the scenes that we'll never know. But on the face value, this, at least the comics brand, has kind of just been rudderless for like a while. Like they have like really cool lines and really cool books. Like I love Young Animal and and I really like the teen line, but it's like they never promote them. They never kind of like really try and do anything big with them. They're just kind of like left off to their own devices. And the mainline DC, it's like you got Scott Snyder kind of just doing whatever he wants.
Yeah, which they even said like he's going to be leaving the mainline DC to play in his own continuity, which is kind of what they've been doing with a bunch of people, because you have his own continuity, the Sean Murphy like White Knight universe they're supposed to be building. What's his name, who wrote Injustice and is now writing Deceased, has his own continuity now, basically, like that zombie.
Yeah, which I think is like kind of the problem. It's like there's like Young Animal is its own thing, and the Young Justice books are kind of its own thing, and then you have the Young Reader books are its own thing. You have Black Label, which is completely separate. You have like all these people like have their own like pocket universes that they're kind of playing with. But I'm like, okay, but like, what is DC Comics right now? What is what is the main driving point of like this company? Like, what is Superman doing? What's the Justice League doing? What's happening in Batman? And like the Batman book, and the Batman books seem to have like kind of a plan. You know, it's like it seems
because they had a guy, and Snyder's been also running Justice League for a bit too.
Well, I meant just the main Batman book. Like, you know, it's like they had Tom King, who then they like kicked out of the book. And then they were like, well, we're going to get someone new for issue 100. So James Tynion's going to like kind of like come in on that. But like I guess he's been doing so well that they were just like, oh, you know what, just promote him to the main Batman book. Like now he's the Batman writer now. But, you know, like there was supposed to be this 5G thing that happened. There were supposed to be some ramifications after Doomsday Clock.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of that stuff was the Dio factor that got kind of killed that. And I'm going to keep saying Snyder, it seems like that he was the spearhead to, like, get rid of that. Although they keep saying 5G is still happening, that nobody is interested in, fan-wise, it seems.
I mean, like, I'd be interested in kind of, like, anything right now. Like, I was kind of really excited for, like, the Far Sector stuff, but, like...
Oh, I love that book, too.
But it's like, it's like Wally West is, like, hanging out in the Mobius chair as Dr. Manhattan, and... Like, and I understand the coronavirus had, like, a lot to kind of do with, like, books being pushed back 2 months and then, like, things being restructured and trying to kind of, like, figure it out. But there's just, like, no leadership at DC. And I don't know if it's just because, like, you have, like, a lot of people who are just, like, unsure of, like, what's happening or being kind of put on hold or, like, this Warner merger or, like, you know, cuts have been happening, so, like, you don't want to push anything forward too soon, or the failure of, like, DC Universe as a brand as a whole, and them trying to, like, ship it into HBO Go, and then them not really sure, like, it's, like, there's, like, so many hands in the pie right now that it's just, like, there needs to be, like, my big hope is that, like, at this DC Summit thing or fan thing, they have, like, a big, huge comics thing where they're just like, okay, this is, like, the next, like, 5 months of comics. Like, this, or, like, you know, this is our next big thing that we're planning. And, like, you know, it's neat that they have, like, these little pocket universes, but I feel like at the end of the day, they still need, like, some main driving force to, like, you know, read a Wonder Woman book or read a Superman book or, you know, read some of these other characters.
Yeah, it's like in this weird spot where there's in comics right now, you kind of have a lot of really great creative writers, and continuity, especially on the DC side, like is non-existent for the most part. It's like all over the place.
And like, I don't know, man. Like, it's like, to me, it just kind of seems like, Jonathan Hickman is like, like a once in a lifetime kind of creator and creative guy. But it's like, he comes in and he pitches Hoxpox and like this big, huge plan for X-Men. And it sells super well. And like, it has a plan and there's stuff going forward and everything feels like pretty cohesive. And it's like, and it's still part of the Marvel U. Like, it's a part of like Marvel's big dumb event that's going on right now.
Yeah, I would say it's like, the thing is, and to compare, like, he's in the beginning, like he's still in like year one of that, and Snyder was kind of that 5 years ago, and now he's 5 years in and is not wanting to continue. Like, he did Batman for like 3 or 4 years. He's done Justice League for like 2 years. I can see why he doesn't want to keep like kind of being like an editor-in-chief of like this main story without.
But like, also before this, like he it's like he was doing like 2 different Avengers books that all like led up to this big, huge like Secret Wars story that like kind of had this big combination. It's like, it's just like there just needs to be like someone at DC that's needs to be the creative spearhead for like the main comics. That's like not Jeff Johns. I can't like stress that enough, because it's like that guy, like you can't build a brand around a guy who can't like get books out on time. Like, to this day, I still just don't understand like why they gave him, like why he gave himself that Shazam book when you have a movie to promote and the book barely comes out on time.
Well, it doesn't come out. Like, none of his books came out on time.
Yeah, it's like Doomsday Clock was supposed to be like this big, huge, like set piece to the DCU, and it took so long that like it kind of just dragged down other books. And then like, it's like we got Heroes of Crisis that didn't make sense, and Doomsday Clock in the end, Doomsday Clock like doesn't kind of really matter, because nothing that happened in Doomsday Clock has actually affected any of the other books.
Well, because it took so long to come out that they kind of had to ignore it continuity-wise. Like, it was supposed to be this, like, build-up. There was supposed to be a build-up in the DC universe that was like, oh, Doomsday Clock's 2 years in the future, and then we're supposed to, like, see how we get there, kind of like 52 was back in the day.
Yeah.
But it took so long to come out that, like, DC continuity caught up to the book.
Also, like, in the span, it took, like, Jeff Johns to do that 2-year-long Doomsday Clock story that no one liked, like, or like, people kind of liked, but
it had its moments.
Had no kind of like real ramifications within the comic book line that they were doing, and kind of ended on this giant wet fart. At the same time, HBO is making this groundbreaking, revolutionary take on Watchmen that gets like so many like nominations. That's like, don't they feel like a couple of dum-dums? It's like, this is like kind of more in the spirit of Watchmen than the Watchmen that they tried replicating in their comics.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's so confusing, like, what's happening with them. I don't know. Like, it's so goofy. Like, I guess we'll have to see what shakes up. Like, seeing what happened with the games division and then what didn't happen, and seeing all this stuff going on with the comic side, it's just like, what is this company doing? Like, it seems like Warner Brothers itself doesn't know what's going on. So if they don't know what's going on, then how the hell can DC Comics, who they pretty much seem to not really give a shit about, because they're like, unless the movies are making a shit tons of money like Marvel, which they haven't been, they just don't care about them at all. Like, they don't care about the comics division or like much of the IP at this point.
I mean, I guarantee you they care about IP, because like that's the only thing that's worth like a company.
Well, it's the only thing that's worth of DC, yes. But I'm saying like the IP, because of decisions they've made over the years, they've kind of hurt it a ton. So,
is the rumor of the games division going off the market, like, is that a new thing?
That happened like yesterday or today?
Yeah, it's the newest thing I've heard.
Do you honestly think that when the preview for that Suicide Squad game came out and like everyone came out being like really excited for it, like Warner Brothers was like, oh, like people seem to be actually like really excited for our game today.
I think it's that plus the hate that was possibly going to be sold to EA, and everyone freaked the fuck out on that. And I wonder how much HBO Max plays into this, because I wonder if they were worried that it wasn't going to do well. Because it's been, a month since it came out?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of money to invest, and I wonder if they thought that it was not going to be worth it, and selling the games division, even though it's profitable, would be a way to kind of balance the books if Max tanked.
I mean, it's just like so.
They already flushed down a shit ton of money with DC Universe, because they're basically, at this point, it's a dead service. Like, if you go on HBO Max, it says Doom Patrol and Harley Quinn are HBO Max originals. They already said that they're going to bring Stargirl to CW. It's just a comic thing, which is still awesome, but it's like they built this entire thing, and then they're like, oh wait, we're going to build another thing, and we kind of need all this content, so yoink.
Well, I mean, to be honest, at the very beginning, like, the DC stuff should have been part of HBO Max. Like, oh
yeah, they should have never made the DC app.
Like, this just feels like kind of like, you know, a lot of like with Sony, where Sony has like basic like other divisions within its company that like kind of don't speak to each other and like don't like interact with, like, you know, with one hand doing another thing, like, and it just feels like you have Warner Media and you have like people who are like working in all these different divisions, and they're not talking to one another. And so instead of like spending a bunch of money on like all these proprietary apps, it's like, why not just make an app that basically is a hub for all the things that you have within your company? And it's just like they should.
Which they still, and not everything is up, and they're going to be rotating movies, which I don't get at all. And then they signed deals with other companies to have their stuff, like Crunchyroll is part of it, Studio Ghibli. Do they own Adult Swim? I thought that was like Universal.
Nope. Adult Swim is part of Cartoon Network, which is Turner Broadcasting, which is Warner Brothers.
AT&T. Okay. So like, yeah, so they at least made a deal with Crunchyroll, unless they bought them.
No, I believe Sony has like kind of some stake within Crunchyroll. But like, you know, it's like that's the reason why, like, you know, there's certain Disney things that are not on Disney Plus, that are on Netflix.
Yeah, but that's because deals were signed way ago. But there's stuff that's on DC Universe that's not on HBO Max.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Like, especially like DC Universe has everything that was ever animated, DC wise, is on there. HBO Max has a couple of things. Also, I know it's like probably gets into weird rights stuff, but like HBO Max has Batwoman and none of the other CW stuff. And all the other CW stuff is on Netflix or on the CW app, but not Batwoman. So if you want to, say, watch the later, like the Crisis, you have to watch 3 of them on one service and 1 on the other.
That's so dumb.
Yeah, the one last thing I just wanted to say about the games division is like them. I never got like why they would try to sell them, because of like, I feel like every Warner game is just like every game they release is like always within like the top selling games of the year. Like Injustice 2 was like,
but that's not them. They bought, what do you call it, right? Is it NetherRealm? They own NetherRealm?
They own NetherRealm.
Yeah.
So it's like, like the sale of Warner Brothers, they would be selling NetherRealm, and they'd be selling like. And what I just don't understand is like Injustice 2 was like one of the top like
fighting games ever.
I think it was like number 9th best-selling game the year it came out, and I'm like looking at the numbers for Mortal Kombat 11. Like last year, it was the 5th best-selling game of the year, and the 4th best-selling game on the PlayStation 4. And that's like not counting like all the re-releases, all the DLC, all the microtransactions they get. Like, you know, they skim off the top of that game, and you know, having like Injustice 3 come out, that's going to be like, a multi-million seller. Like a Suicide Squad game will probably definitely by Rocksteady, like from a studio that people haven't seen in so long. Like they'd be like definitely like kind of starved for that content, and like you would have to bet that that's like going to be like one of the top 10 selling games of the year. It just seems like
I'm looking at their other games. You have all that stuff. You have the Hitman. I guess they own Hitman because all that stuff is under DC Games. And then, do they own
Hitman? Is by IDOS.
Okay, because it's under Warner Brothers Games like website.
Am I? I thought Hitman was like IDOS all this time.
Is it not?
Yeah, developers IO Interactive, Square Enix. Yeah.
So yeah, they own Avalanche, Monolith, NetherRealm, Rocksteady, TT Games.
Okay. I would have to like look into this further, but yeah, it looks just like IO Interactive is its like own thing now. Like, okay, so there was like a buyout. Square Enix announced that they withdraw funding from IO. In April 2018, IO Interactive partnered with Warner Brothers to distribute definitive editions of Hitman. But then in June 2020, IO Interactive announced Hitman 3 in conclusion to their trilogy. The game will be published by IO Interactive themselves. So Warner Brothers helped them basically distribute the definitive edition in between them doing a buyout from Square Enix.
They also have TT Games is the company that I think does all the Lego games.
Traveler's Tale, yeah.
Yeah. So basically every Lego game they make some change off of, which is big money on its own.
Yeah, man, it's super weird. Like I don't get it. Like I get like if you're a company that wants to like, cut corners to like make like a fiscal report seem good, and you see like this games division, which like Mortal Kombat was like could have been like, it was probably like the biggest game that they had last year, but like I don't know too many other Warner Brother games that came out last year like that would have been under their umbrella, and they could have probably been like, oh, like it's like, yeah, we made money on Mortal Kombat, but like why, it's like what else were you gonna do? Like this other studio's been working on this game for like 5 years and they have turned in nothing. And now it's like, everything's coming home, everything's starting to come out, and now it's like, oh hey, like we actually could make a couple $1 million off of all this.
It looks like the other kind of more recent games like Lego Movie 2 and Shadow of War, the sequel to the Lord of the Rings game.
Oh yeah, the one that like put a bunch of microtransactions.
Well, yeah, that's gaming in the modern era.
Yeah.
But I'm very glad, at least, if they're not selling to EA, we don't get, like, Riddler loot boxes for our next games.
I mean, I think I think of all the rumored people that they were, like, looking to partner up with, like Activision or EA, I think they were all bad.
Yeah, well, Activision is basically getting roasted every couple of days, or Blizzard, I should say, but Activision is part of them, so...
Well, I mean, they're not getting as roasted as badly as Ubisoft recently, but
yeah.
they all get roasted. It's basically like a lazy Susan of like whose turn is it to get roasted this week.
All right, so I definitely think we should have covered all this. But we are actually here to watch the amazing film that is The Green Hornet. So I see Connor has joined my link thing. If you guys, Ryan and John, want to join it, and
so this is the
official Netflix party.
Yeah, this is the Paul Rudd superhero film where he's a bug-themed hero who teams up with another hero, and they go in
minority. A more interesting minority character in the movie.
I was like actually trying to like think of a way to like.
Oh well, what's his name?
Hornet, Wasp. I was like, it's like just like Ant-Man the Wasp, but it
see, I was going to like the first Ant-Man where it's him and oh my god, I'm forgetting the guy who plays his name. That steals the movie, the first one.
Yellow Jacket.
No, the actor that plays his friend, the Spanish guy.
Spanish dude.
Yeah. Pena.
Yeah, Michael Pena. Oh, I should have guessed his name because it's my name. His name's Luis.
Oh, speaking of Luis, on Hulu they added that Dora the Explorer live action movie, and I'm not ashamed to say that I actually enjoyed it.
I feel like it just like came out and nobody knew about it, like coming out. Like I feel like it just like died in the theaters.
It was surprisingly like well done. I was like skeptical because it's Dora the Explorer, but it translated pretty well.
So I guess I'll join the Critics Avengers.